Nintendo 64 games are on the way to the Nintendo Switch online service. This of course has us pondering what other Nintendo 64 games we'd like to take on the go, or even play online with friends. So in no particular order, here are a few of our picks for Nintendo 64 games we'd like playable on Nintendo Switch. First up is Diddy Kong Racing. While Mario Kart 64 is already included in the lineup for Nintendo Switch Online, I don't think I'm alone in favoring Rare's take on the 64-bit kart racer. Diddy Kong Racing blends classic kart racing with influences drawn from Rare's own expansive 3D platformers to create an entirely new subgenre. The player is free to use not only a car, but an aquatic hovercraft and an airplane as well in this truly all-terrain racing game. While it was remade on DS by Rare after they were acquired by Microsoft with questionable success, this would be the first time that this pivotal Nintendo 64 classic could be released on a modern console. Due to Microsoft's purchase of Rare, it would be easy to think this one impossible. But with the inclusion of Banjo-Kazooie, which Microsoft themselves are actively selling on their own platform via Rare Replay, the sky seems to be the limit, and Diddy Kong Racing happens to be pretty good at taking to the sky. Next up is Perfect Dark. Like Banjo-Kazooie, Perfect Dark is a game actively being sold on Microsoft's Xbox consoles, though technically not the original non-remastered version. Perfect Dark is a staple of the Nintendo 64 experience with its groundbreaking cinematic single-player and its addictive split-screen multiplayer. Like many games on this list, the potential of being able to play the original Nintendo 64 game online with friends is extremely enticing. In fact, as a new Perfect Dark is currently in development for Xbox, this could serve as some very strange cross-platform promotion. That is, of course, unless Microsoft just wants to port the remastered version to Switch instead. I'd also accept that option. Next up, Super Smash Bros. Just as we were about to catch a break from constant Smash talk, imagine being able to play the original Super Smash Bros. Online via the Nintendo Switch. This is a game that launched one of the most popular fighting franchises of all time. It's also probably more likely to cause early onset Joy-Con drift than nearly any other game. Ironically, there's also the potential for a Nintendo Switch Online version of the original Smash to actually have better online than Smash Ultimate. So take me back to that time when even the fastest characters were kinda slow and awkward and clunky. When Fox's blaster actually did knockback damage, and when some poor 3D modeler apparently just sorta forgot what Donkey Kong looked like for a hot second. Seriously, who even is this? Next is Wave Race 64. I'll be honest, I mostly just want Wave Race 64 so that I can occasionally boot it up and listen to the main title music. Like, yes, there is also an incredible racing game that for an N64 game is very technically impressive, and yes, it would be another wonderful game to play online with friends, and of course, it would be great to see Nintendo keep the series at least slightly alive as we wait for an unlikely new game. But the main thing is really just the music. Have you heard the music from Wave Race 64? It's incredible. Honestly, like top 10 N64 soundtracks of all time, right up there with like Pilotwings, kind of that level of N64 goodness. Next, Pokemon Puzzle League. If there was one Nintendo 64 game that I feel has never gotten the proper chance at a re-release it needs, it's easily Pokemon Puzzle League. Wait, where are you going? No, hold on, I mean it. It's easy to write off Pokemon Puzzle League as soon as you hear about it, but it happens to be a reskin of a classic action puzzle game called Paddle to Pong. Every game in this series has unfortunately been reskinned upon release in the West. You may also know it as Tetris Attack. But the series as a whole is an incredible action puzzle franchise worthy of standing next to the actual original Tetris. Pokemon Puzzle League is unique in that it isn't a reskin of an existing game. It was released in the West first, it was so well received that it was eventually reskinned back into a proper Paddle to Pong game for Japan on the GameCube. While the original SNES game is currently available on Nintendo Switch Online, you can only play it in its untranslated Japanese version. Meanwhile, Pokemon Puzzle League has only ever been re-released on a now-defunct Wii Virtual Console, meaning it's in a prime position to finally make a return on Switch. Next, Ogre Battle 64, Person of Lordly Caliber. It's not a secret that the N64 lacked RPGs. Sure, there were a few exceptions like the beloved Paper Mario and also Quest 64, but after losing Final Fantasy VII to Sony, most JRPG developers followed Square in their exodus of the Nintendo ecosystem. One often forgotten RPG title that did end up on the Nintendo 64 was Ogre Battle 64. Okay, it was technically a tactical RPG with real-time strategy mechanics, so maybe it's not the tried and true random battles fighting dungeon crawling experience, but that's only more reason to have it on Nintendo Switch Online since there are so few games like it now, just like there were so few games like it then. Turns out that Square Enix owns the rights to Ogre Battle though. Let's hope they don't withhold RPG goodness from the N64 fans again. Next is the game I'm sure you all were thinking, Buck Bumble. Within the Nintendo 64 library, Buck Bumble is mentioned more often in relation to its admittedly killer theme song than the actual game itself. But beyond the soundtrack is a great flight combat game where you play as a cyborg bee. Why do we need cyborg bees? Well, simple. Because a chemical spill has caused the rest of the insect kingdom to turn into power-hungry maniacs bent on world domination, and if that isn't a job for a cyborg bee, then I don't know what is. Buck Bumble is also often ignored as the game that Rocket League shamelessly ripped off. Yeah, I said it. You really thought we wouldn't notice, didn't you? Well, you can expect to hear from Buck's lawyers. Of course he has lawyers. He's a cyborg bee. You think a cyborg bee isn't prepared to enter litigation at a moment's notice? You'd be wrong. Last on the list is Pilotwings 64. One of the two launch titles that debuted with the Nintendo 64 itself, Pilotwings may have lived in the shadow of Mario's first 3D adventure, but it was a worthy sequel to the Super Nintendo original. After choosing from among the 6 characters available, one of whom looked suspiciously like Nestor from Nintendo Power, you would complete challenges to earn licenses for the various flying machines. A personal favorite, the gyrocopter, not only tasked players with taking off, flying, and then landing, but also had challenges where you had to aim and fire missiles at floating targets. The jump to 3D made Pilotwings an exciting, if simple, flight sim, and it certainly deserves a place on the Nintendo Switch Online library. What do you think? What games would you like to see added to the service in the future? Let us know in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing to Nintendo World Report TV and checking out NintendoWorldReport.com for a whole lot more. You can talk with us about this or anything else Nintendo related in our Discord. There's a link in the description. Stick around for information on our Patreon, and I will see you next time. This video was made possible by our generous supporters on Patreon. Did you know that Nintendo World Report is funded directly by fans like you? When you support Nintendo World Report on Patreon, you get immediate access to multiple exclusive podcasts every month, exclusive Discord channels, an early look at select content, and more, all for as little as $1 a month. Check out patreon.com/NWR for all the details.